It's a sunny Monday afternoon here in the capital. Good afternoon and welcome to The Pulse. This is where the conversation begins. The Pulse is live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125, and on all our social media handles. We're JoyNews on TV. Coming up, the minority in Parliament is warning the government that their tactic of fast-tracking bills with certificates of urgency won't fly anymore, pledging to put up a fight against the majority in the House.
No more certificate of urgency.
They're also taking aim at GoldBod's dual role, alleging it could be fueling illegal mining.
To allow for further deliberations amongst the various parties, the Ministry of Finance, GoldBod, and government on a sustainable cost-sharing structure for the program.
We'll bring you fallout from the Minorities News Conference earlier today. Also coming up as the battle for MPP's leadership intensifies with less than a week to go before delegates cast their votes. A single question dominates the narrative. Who can unite the fractured party?
Player number 3 Obedu yado cha number 1 who no betina me nchen. And I'm saying Debbie, I was so going
We'll hear from the camps of aspirants. Also coming up, the Ghana Law Society rejects claims that it is an NDC-aligned group of lawyers seeking personal gain or trying to challenge the Ghana Bar Association's dominance.
Does the Constitution bar NDC from forming a group? It does not. So,
is it an NDC?
By
more as the group pulls the brakes on the official announcement of its accreditation by the General Legal Council pending the outcome of an interlocutory injunction filed at the High Court. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Defendril Cough Expectorant. Defendril, breathe easy, feel better. My name is Faustina Safo. As usual, please take a seat. Be my guest. Thanks for choosing us. Well, this afternoon, the minorities join a line in the sand, warning the government that their era of steamrolling bills through with certificates of urgency is over. They have vowed not to allow any bill to be fast-tracked without proper scrutiny. But it's not just about process. They are triggering a bigger fish and targeting that fish as well. The GoldBod's dual role as regulator and operator. The minority alleges this toxic mix is fueling illegal mining across the country, and they're calling for urgent reforms to stop the rot. Speaking at a news conference earlier today, Minority Leader Alexander Afenyo Markin said this conflict of interest undermines the integrity of regulatory oversight.
When Parliament commences, reconvenes on the 3rd of February, we are no more going to allow the majority to have it way. The majority has turned Parliament into a Parliament of fast track and no scrutiny. A rubber stamp Parliament where everything comes under certificate of urgency. They should be ready to beat us in the chamber. We will resist with all the energy in us. No more certificate of urgency. They had their way in the passage of the GoldBod law, the energy sector recovery levy, the Dumso levy. They also introduced its certificate of urgency and many more other laws that they pass it through certificate of urgency without any scrutiny. We hereby sound a caution to the NDC majority. If they are not ready to read, we are ready to read. We all became aware that their 189 only exists in numbers.
That's right.
When it comes to substance, they can't match the length of the trousers of the minority. They only talk numbers. But we all know that even in the passage of laws, when it comes to quality debates, we do proper research and we argue on facts supported with data. What they come into the chamber to do is their propaganda. But come 2026, this 2026, they will never have their way. We will hold their feet to the fire and ensure that each minister account for his stewardship. We know that 2026 budget is a chop-chop budget. We know that 2026 budget is a chop-chop budget. We are going to open our eye and scrutinize every contract, every document that goes to PPA. The minority will follow it and bring motions. And we hereby also plead with Mr. Speaker that he is doing Ghana's work and is doing the work for the growth of democracy. We are aware Mr. Speaker is an NDC leading member, but where he sits, he is to protect both of us. We have been frustrated by numerous dismissal of our motions. Questions are delayed. Questions are declined. Issues that must be allowed to be debated on the House floor, we see subtle culture of silence being introduced and procedural roadblocks are used to deny us opportunity. But we want to pray, Mr. Speaker, most humbly, that he should prioritize substance over form. That is the rule of equity. He should prioritize prudence over procedure and allow debate to flow. We will not sit idly by and allow the majority to use their numbers to deny us our duty in ensuring that there is proper oversight. We are also aware that Central Bank is saying that it wants to give some moratorium of 1 month to allow for further deliberations amongst the various parties, the Ministry of Finance, GoldBod, and government, on a sustainable cost-sharing structure for the program. So indeed, if the minority was merely blowing hot air, why have they now decided through joint board meeting to take steps to ensure a sustainable cost structure? We are concerned about these losses. We believe that if indeed we are going to have a gold for oil reserves, the government must take steps to sustain it by ensuring that there's real profits. The approach they have adopted will not help the country. We need money to build roads, to construct hospitals, to build schools, to create jobs. And if the central bank is going to underwrite some of these artificial losses and turn around to tell us that it's an economic cost, we regret to say that the minority will not accept this. We are open to discussions on this matter, and just as we always do, we'll put forward our views. We also want to say that we filed a motion in Parliament. We have become aware that the Speaker has admitted the motion, which would allow for broader engagement and consultation on this matter. We urge the various stakeholders in this gold for oil reserve to open up to hear our views so that together we can move this country forward.
Well, let's take you now to Parliament. My colleague James Aveji is there for us. James, let's just go through some of the key things that have come up. They've raised concerns about the Gold for Oil program. Tell me more.
Well, firstly, as you have heard partly there,
The minority, have labeled this from what came out of that a document from the IMF as a loss. They said this 1 month moratorium that the Bank of Ghana is giving to look further into this issue, to take a decision on it, vindicate their position that this is indeed a loss, calling for both parliamentary and other stakeholder commitment to look into this matter to forestall some of these losses that have been recorded in the 2025 trading year. But they've, apart from that, been looking at other issues. For instance, the anti-LGBTQ matter, the content that came up in the SHS teacher manual. They still condemn that. They have rejected the apology coming from government through the Ministry of Education, recalling this and apologizing for the content finding its way into this particular teacher manual. They say that it has become very evident that the government, through the majority, are not ready to live up to their words and promises to Ghanaians about their, objection or how they abhor these LGBTQ cases going into the election, reason why they have still not been able to pass the bill in Parliament for the president to assent to it into a full document. We can listen to Honorable Alexander Afenyo Markin on this.
As we speak, they have refused, neglected, and deliberately denied the people of Ghana that anti-LGBT law that they themselves spoke about. To make matters worse, our own curriculum, they have found space to introduce this promotion of sexual rights in the curriculum of our children. When they were exposed, this is what they had to say, that it was a mistake and that an anomaly. What an anomaly? When government documents have been printed, circulated, and signed by no less a person than the sector minister, and through the vigilance of the minority, you get exposed, you now say it was an anomaly. We don't accept this. We hold a view that the NDC used the anti-LGBT law only for power. And now that they are facing the reality, they want to find a way of running away from it. We will insist that they act by their own principle.
Well, James is still with us. James, the minority also raised concerns about the ongoing tour by the Chief Justice. What is your position on that?
Exactly. So this morning, we've been told that the CJ has been to the Ghana Police Service to meet the IGP. Details of that, I must say, is not yet public. It was from there he moved to Parliament, where we had the indication that he will be here as part of those engagements ongoing, only for him to, arrive. And then we were told that this particular meeting is also expected to be behind closed doors. Now, as part of formalities, anytime the Speaker of Parliament is meeting any head of institution or any organization, he usually does that with the leadership of the House from both sides, both majority and minority. And so it was expected that the minority was also is also expected to be in this meeting. But the minority leader indicated that, in fact, they have nothing to do with that particular meeting. They question the motive behind the CJ's tour, current tour. They believe that, in their own words, this is a thank you tour he's doing, thanking the John Mahama government for appointing him as a Chief Justice. They also stated that, in fact, they don't have any belief in him, or they believe that he's an quote-unquote intolerant head of the judiciary. Those positions, for still you remember, the minority leader made in his opening statement, which led to the drag of that particular vetting. They still stay in that position. And so because of these two issues, they will not be part of that meeting. And that if he, the CJ, wants to meet the minority, their doors are open for exclusive meeting with him to tell him their peace of mind on his leadership at the bench, as well as the issues surrounding his appointment. They say that they dovetail that into the 3-term conversations about John Mahama, which the president himself had told us that he's not interested in. And so, as far as they are concerned, they did not go to that meeting today. The speaker went ahead to meet the CJ, but it was behind closed doors. So we're waiting on maybe a statement from the speaker on what issues they've been looking at in that particular meeting. But as far as the minority is concerned, they have absented themselves, boycotted that meeting between the speaker and the Chief Justice.
Thank you so much, James Afenyo. Well, join me now in the studio is Minority MP for Wale Wale, Tia Kabiru Mahama, for some insights into some of the number of issues that the minority have raised earlier today at that news conference. You're welcome to the studio.
Thank you, and pleasure being with you.
Thank you. Today, the minority painted a bleak picture of the economy. It appears you're playing the devil's advocate. Is that the case? That's your strategy, is it not?
Well, so first of all, let me say good afternoon to you and to the people of Ghana. The New Patriotic Party is the official and the major opposition party. And our role as members of parliament and members of the minority is to ensure that government accounts to the people. And that the rhetorics, the government painting a picture when the full story is not told, the part of the story that is not told, it is incumbent on us as members of the minority to tell that story. And we seize the opportunity today, terminate holding power to account, to educate and to bring to the fore certain matters that the president, that the government has either willfully refused to address, or they are pretending they are addressing them, or the government is actually not telling the good of people of Ghana the truth. And that's what we catalog on the economy. We gave what we think was happening, and what the minority presented is no different from what the IMF has stated as the reason that we are getting the stability. We address issues of the
So you're taking credit for the stability of the economy.
We are addressing
But then you're already
raising
raising concerns about key issues like Galamsey. You allege that the GoldBod's dual role as a regulator and also one who is buying from the miners is compromising their regulatory oversight.
Well, so what is important is that we need to let the group of people know what is occasioning the stability. I'm sure it is an important question. Of course, for the ordinary Ghanaian, if fuel prices are coming down, that is what all matters. But for the informed discourse of our national politics, we will need to tell the good people, and the president has the onerous responsibility. In fact, he has the constitutional responsibility, even if it's not a moral responsibility, to lead truthfully. And once we think that the president has to lead the good people, he has to tell them reasons why we are experiencing stability. And that stability is temporary. That is what the president is not even telling the good people, that the measures that were put in place were not measures that will send us out of the woods. They were measures that will rescue the spade at which the city was falling. Those measures are temporary. So when you come and those measures are helping, you don't go to sleep and letting people think that whenever they are going to complain, you say dollar is 10.8.
You're taking credit for even the
we are sharing the credit. It is only we are not interested in saying that this government, for the fact that we set a template and the government has continued the template, the government needs commendation. But it is the government, selfish desire to take all the credit, the government dishonesty, not to even apportion part of the success and the foundation that have been laid by the previous government. That is the difficulty the minority has. And I think that the good people of Ghana has the responsibility to know that certain measures were put in place. Those measures are yielding results. Of course, this government is continuing such measures, and that those measures are not final or permanent measures. They are temporary measures. Even the cost of the stability of the currency has not been discussed. It is our duty to discuss that, because we know that when the NPP comes to power, the cost of that particular stability will bear the cost of that stability. So it is important that when we are discussing those matters, we'll tell the good people of Ghana what is happening. And on GoldBod, we raised the issue because when we first raised the issue of the losses, they use all sort of technical terms to try to wash away the unprecedented, the historical loss of $214 million.
But you were here during news file. You were not satisfied with the explanation given by the GoldBod
explanation CEO. Provided they raised more questions than answers. And when we raised those questions, It appears to us that we are only interested in finding fault. But it took the IMF to come back to our position. It took the IMF during a press briefing in Washington to reinstate the fact that those things they call economic losses are actual trading losses. They are transactional losses. So when we come on your platforms and then the government, through whatever PR they want to engage in, wants to wash away the issues, the IMF will come back to expose them. So basically, why we came here to explain, and that was not even probably given the right platform to discuss this matter in extenso, the IMF has brought the matter home to us. Basically, the IMF has stated clearly that it is huge loss. The governor of the Bank of Ghana has come back to say that, look, we cannot continue such losses. The government has to find a way of absorbing those losses. They have given the GoldBod and the Minister of Finance a one-month moratorium to find a way of handling the issue, at least. But we think that there are more questions, and that's why we are calling for parliamentary inquiry. And the leader of the minority clearly stated that we've admitted a motion where we expect, where we want to call witnesses, where we want to call people to come and account as to how we can be trading in gold and be making losses. I understand if someone is trading in tomatoes, they are perishable goods. But for gold, whose prices increases every day, we don't expect it for you to be trading in that and be making losses. We also handle the fact that, look, if you are trading gold, it's okay. It's our natural resources. You should get value from it. But have you done issue about traceability? Are you encouraging galamsey, where we are having traces of cyanide and mercury in our water bodies, where your media station and other journalists and other civil society organizations have been so much concerned about galamsey and the reeling effect of galamsey on our water bodies? You're now finding your voice when it comes to galamsey. The MPP government, let me tell you what the MPP government did. You had a president that put his presidency on the line. Let me tell you what. We're still fighting the canker. Let me tell you. It appears you had failed. Let me tell you that the data does not suggest that the MPP government failed in the fight. MPP government did not eradicate galamsey, admittedly. And at the point that we were leaving power, remnants of galamsey was still happening in our country. But the spate, the audacity of the galamseyers have been emboldened because of the complicit nature of the actors of the government. We and I know that galamseyers are now emboldened under this government. You and I know that water bodies are now more polluted than they were some 2 years ago. You and I know that the president Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo actually banned small-scale mining for 2 years in this country, just to be sure that they can get some firm handle on the issue of galamsey. When they were telling us that the solution was a state of emergency, we've been giving them the power. They have not declared the state of emergency, and that the civil society organization is quiet. And that's why we think that Article 162 But they met with civil society groups and they had a conversation, and they all came to a consensus that probably we should hasten slowly with the declaration. No one has, even the Catholic bishops. The Catholic bishops have come down with that number, and they have spoken to the deaf ear of the president. That's if they don't matter. That recently, about a month ago, they called on the need for the president to put a ban, in the meantime, on mining, small-scale mining. And that at the rate at which we are going, if we don't take care, the next 4 years, 5 years, we will not have potable water to drink in this country. So now that you're in opposition, you agree that there's a need to declare a state of emergency? We think that the president found the answer. The answer was state of emergency, on the back of which the people of Ghana voted for the president. The only noble thing, there's nothing nobler than to adhere to your own words, to do the very things that you told the people of Ghana that you were going to do. When you do that, and you come to realizing that it was a wrong policy, then you come back to your sense, look, we got the policy wrong. But until you do that, and until that is off the table, you have to go religiously and faithfully with that particular commitment to the people of Ghana. And that is what we are concerned about. And we're also concerned about the fact that justice is actually not done, and that the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary, the fact that the judiciary is supposed to serve independent of the executive and the legislature, is being compromised under this government. Simply because the Chief Justice is on a tour? Far from that. The circumstances under which the previous Chief Justice has left the seat is a scar on the conscience of Ghana. And that if the international community is not even so happy with the rate, the manner, with the way and the approach of this whole Article 142 or 146 arrangement by the president, is all the president had calculated as a campaign promise how he was going to execute that, and he executed that clinically.
Allegedly.
And that
we have no proof.
And God, there's nothing more.
Allegedly.
That is
the
nothing.
International community. I recall that during the peak of this, you submitted a petition. Any update on that petition?
Well, I think that so Commonwealth bodies have raised issues about this issue. We have talked about it to some international bodies. They think that while they are engaging them, they think that some things are political questions. They want to respect the independence of the country being sovereign, and the right of the president to take decisions. But I think that the president's decision should be guided by good conscience. And that if your decisions are based on politics, your decisions are based on pettiness, your decisions are based on the fact that the face of a certain woman that you don't like, and that I will have to get the woman out at all costs.
That is alleged.
That decision is not guided by good conscience.
Stated misbehavior was actually grounded. And the reason why the council advised that they proceed with a procedure for her removal. So, and she was
I'm saying that if that was the stated misbehavior, the president is not even qualified to be the president of the Republic of Ghana. And that if such a bar that they classify and define as stated misbehavior, the basis of which they remove the Chief Justice, the president himself is not qualified.
Why is the minority boycotting that meeting? Because
we think that the CJ is engaging on a thank you tour to appease the very people who scheme, connive to make him the CJ. We think that the processes were hastened through, that someone had not ventilated extensively her rights under the Constitution, that if we had even given her the benefit of ventilating, litigating her matter to the conclusion, because litigation must come to an end. Litigation cannot continue, at large, right? So if the fact that the Chief Justice lacked the patience to even say that I'm putting myself in conflict of interest situation, and going ahead to accept it as if he was already waiting for it, brings moral questions, brings issues about propriety that we are concerned about. And that the fact that we told them and they refused, and the Chief Justice is going on that particular thank you tour, we want history to remember and to serve us right. And
it's not a thank you tour, by the way. He didn't state that it's a thank you tour. He's only visiting the key institutions.
And he would not want to use the word thank you tour because he will know that it is clearly a reflection, it's clearly a revelation of his real intent. And for a man who wants to cover, to move under the darkness of night, he will not use thank you tour, right? So we will have to lift the veil and to see it as it is.
So is it the case that the minority, as we speak, you do not believe in Ghana's judicial structure?
We believe that the current judicial structure has been hugely and heavily, and in fact, very, if you like, alarmingly polarized. That is our belief. Our belief is that the judicial has the opportunity to purge itself of that particular, dent, that the scar that have been left on them by the actions and their connivance and their sleeping or being in bed with the executive. They have the opportunity to show that in their judicial decisions, they have the right to stand out, to say that yes, we are independent, and truly so the Constitution has guaranteed our independence, and that they need to act as such. Until such time that the current Chief Justice does that, and we are open, like the minority leader said, we are open to engaging the Chief Justice, to telling him how he's leading and our reservation about his leadership, and if he's ready to carry everyone along, well, we'll give him our full support.
If you feel the judiciary is polarized, will a future NPP government remove the Chief Justice?
The future NPP government will purge the judiciary of the polarization. That's what I can promise you.
Would remove the Chief Justice?
I can promise you that the future NPP government will purge the judiciary of this polarization. We will take every conceivable move, every legal move under the Constitution and the laws of the Ghana to make sure that justice is done, and not only be done, but be seen to be done. And that we will have man of timber to be at the helms of the judiciary. Such a feat cannot be achieved.
So history will repeat itself. A future NPP government will trigger a controversial article to remove the Chief Justice.
A future NPP government, I can say, without fear of contradiction, is that we will purge the judiciary of the canker. We will purge the judiciary of the cancer. We will exorcise the spirit that has now characterized the judiciary. And that promise I can give you. And the minority is so committed to that until such time we purge, until such time we pacify the goals of the country, the judicial totems of this country, we will still continue to have rulings that will have a judiciary that is being in the pocket of the executive.
The same process you're concerned about?
I am saying that we are not going to polarize. We are not going to polarize.
You're going to ensure that
I'm saying that if you
a line person heads the judiciary, that's what you plan to do.
If you do wrong to a person and you take measures to correct that wrong, you are actually administering justice. And that if that particular pursuit of justice is seen as being polarized, then I think that is a good description.
What is justice? What would justice even mean for the NPP?
Justice means that Mrs. Tokono would be given opportunity to lead the people of the country and as the head of the judiciary. Justice will mean that if there are stated misbehavior and that you believe so strongly that those constitute grounds, and that despite her case, that whatever you are accusing me of, the rules and the regulation guiding the judicial service, under which I am the head, has allowed me to do same, whatever your accusations are, that I am paneling people that I like to determine cases, which is exclusive preserve of the judiciary, and that you have not been able to bring any concrete evidence to substantiate that, and that it will take an opaque process. Where a person who has gone to be heard has been refused her primary and natural right, the right to be heard, which is so much engraved in our constitutional and our jurisprudence. That will mean justice has not been done. And our meaning and our perception and our belief in justice means that a person will have the right to be heard. When a process is going to be triggered, it has to be triggered transparently. Our pursuit of justice means that there must be a process where a Chief Justice will know that I so much duly deserve to be the Chief Justice, and I'm so elected, I'm so appointed, and I'm so nominated so to be the Chief Justice. That is our perception and our understanding of justice. And our understanding of justice is very much aligned with the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. Are
you saying you reinstate Gertrude Tokono? Should you be given the
I am saying that Gertrude Tokono's rights have been violated, and I'm saying that without any fear of contradiction. I am saying that if there are causes or course of action against Tokono, there were appropriate measures they could have put in place to handle that. They didn't. And that we will give the people, the petitioners, the opportunity, and then the accused person, the respondent, an opportunity to have their case being heard to the admiration and to the satisfaction of the whole of the people of Ghana. That is our understanding of justice. And anything short of that particular standard is injustice.
The conduct of the night parliament has always come to the fore, especially with this back and forth within the minority and the majority. During your news conference today, you told us that we should expect more of that. Why?
We clearly stated that we are a minority of 87 members of parliament, and that oversight responsibility is not a factor of numbers, and that if you have a diligent single-member minority in the House of Chamber doing his work effectively, without any fear, holding to the oath of office, that member would hold the government accountable. And that as 87 members of parliament in the minority, we will use every single available parliamentary tool and constitutional equipment or avenue available to the minority.
So we should expect all those chaotic scenes to reappear.
What you claim to be chaotic situation is the fact that we have some intolerant majority trying to, bulldozer their way out in every single matter, and that where a matter demands extensive intellectual intercourse, they will end up trying to use their numbers to bully the minority. And the only way the Constitution has even enjoined the members of the minority to do is to resist, even if it includes the use of force.
You feel bullied by the majority?
And I'm saying that the bullying in the chamber is not something that's going to deter us. We know we are being bullied. We know the numbers are being used, not to the benefits of the good people of Ghana, but to pursue a political agenda. We know that the overwhelming majority that has been given has given it the lances to go on with impunity, to go on with impropriety, and that even laws are hardly passed through, laws that we've raised issues with, and that we were served right at the end of the day. They have gone ahead to pass them. For example, the GoldBod Act, the very things we are complaining about the GoldBod, we raised issues with that, but they had the numbers and they went on with it. we will use every single parliamentary tool. We will use every single, and now let me make this clear. The majority actually clarify it, that you shouldn't go to town to say that we'll continue the chaos that happened in the last 5 years. The MPP never triggered any chaos.
You abandoned your seats, you marched to the center of the floor. In fact, it was chaotic. We saw it on screen. We were watching live.
You were watching live, yes. And that's not the first time Parliament had such a scene. In fact, what even
we should expect more.
What even saw was better than what happened in the 8th Parliament. People turn the maze, where the maze is, where the maze of Parliament is, to a marching ground. You've seen videos of that. But we felt that the Speaker moderating affairs, refusing to hear the side of the minority, who had every reason to disrupt the process because it's part of our rules available. And that if we have to shout, if we will have to, chant, if we have to make sure that the Speaker hear our voice, no matter how feeble the voice may be, we'll have to use it.
But the
and we're basically doing that.
sought to even get your buy-in during that meeting. I recall so clearly. But the minority, you were adamant. The reason why the majority went on to conduct business with the Speaker and pass most of the bills you're raising concerns about during your news conference.
No, you see, the point is that when you agree with the minority that a certain member of Parliament is entitled to sit in as member of Parliament until the court has finally determined that he is so invalidly elected or he has not been elected validly. And that agreement has been set aside, and then we find the majority leader with the Speaker now taking a different turn. It clearly shows that it is not in line with the Constitution, and that if we had to resist it by all means, we needed to resist it. And basically what we did was not unconstitutional. What we did was constitutional. What we did was actually respecting and defending the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, and that we felt that at that material moment, we needed to register, and that whatever bill had passed through that particular process, that bill had passed without the cooperation of the minority, and that bill is as good as the tenor of the NDC. That's just the meaning of that, and the necessary implication of what happened on that day is that whatever decision they took on that day was a decision of the majority, and that decision tenor, the longevity of that particular decision is as good as the tenor of the president. And clearly, we would continue. We are not going to succumb to threats. We are not going to succumb to intimidation. We are not going to succumb to bullying. We know that our people, our elected representatives, over millions of Ghanaians voted for the MPP and for members of Parliament. We represent their voices and we represent the conscience of the country of Ghana.
On the education front, you also raised some key concerns. We know that NACA has since, leadership of NACA has since apologized for that discrepancy we saw with the description of a male and a female in our textbooks. You reject that apology. What do you want government to do?
If we had not been vigilant, if we had not been diligent, if we had not taken the time to peruse that document, our students today would have been learning such matter. Now, come to think of a government that won the sympathy of the good of Ghana because they brand the MPP as promoting LGBTQ. As a matter of fact, they said that the Jubilee House was now the headquarters of LGBTQ+. People bought into that. They came with political reason to sponsor anti-LGBTQ act, a bill that they claimed they had passed. Truly, it was passed by Parliament, that the president refused to assent to. The same people having power 1 year down the line have not assented to that particular bill. Granted, that bill has elapsed. Government has passed several bills with the speed of light on the floor of Parliament.
But that's the concern the majority leader raised. And the Speaker explained in the processes that the process ended with the 8th Parliament, and so the process will have to be triggered.
And I'm saying that granted that excuse, how many bills has the government passed? Several bills. That LGBTQ bill could not be one of those bills they will bring under the certificate of agency. Even if they wanted to even pass it under the normal processes, would have still passed that particular bill. So that is just an excuse. That is a government not showing commitment to the very words they use to deceive, to hoodwink the good people of Ghana. And we think that that bill is before Parliament. That bill has actually gone through the stages. Bringing it before the Parliament is the duty of the majority leader, who is the leader of government business, to bring it for us to discuss and pass it. And it's the duty of the Speaker to preside over that particular process. For us to pass it, it's the duty of the President.
Afenyo is a co-sponsor of the bill.
I am a co-sponsor of the bill as well.
So you could.
And I'm saying that. And I'm saying that.
Why are you now dragging your feet?
We are not dragging our feet. We don't have the power to schedule government businesses. And that the House of Parliament is a house of rules. I cannot decide to say whatever I want to say on Parliament if it's not the time to say that. And I cannot introduce a matter for discussion in Parliament without the leader of government business sponsoring or making sure that...
You said you're the mighty minority. You could push this on
the mighty minority cannot push that. And you see that every time we want to even push things that are not as serious as even what you call LGTB and things that are even more serious than them, they will always have the hit back, the backtracking, and then the pushback of the majority. And I'm telling you that this bill cannot be passed unless the government puts in that particular bill for us to pass it. And you see that they try to sneak it into the syllabus. And that particular afterthought, note that because the good people of Ghana were then bashed, they thought that it would have slipped through, and our student will learn man, woman, being in a different form there than the biological connotation of it. They are backtracking. I just hope that there are no more even other dealings they are having with those particular people in the international community. Because every single now and then, they move out. We don't know what the foreign minister is doing. The foreign minister has lost his voice on the matter of LGBTQ. Mr. Sam George, the minister responsible for communication, has lost his voice on the matter. But they were the lead architects of this matter. And they called parliamentary presidential candidates names on platform that they were the proponents of those particular acts. Now you have the power. You are backtracking on every single lie and every single promise you promise you give the good people of Ghana. And we think that it is not good leadership and that they have to account for what they said they were going to do. And if they will have to take the minority to ensure that they account, we will do it without fear or favor.
What should we expect when Parliament reconvenes? What are the top bills you're looking for?
Well, the first and foremost thing is that we'll have to look at the matter that have led to the losses of 240 million. And now we have filed a motion, the minority leader...
reserve program?
The parliamentary inquiry on that particular matter is one of the things that on the side of my minority that we'll be pushing. We'll be pushing for the passage of the LGBTQ Act. We want to pass it so that the government, the president can assent to it. As minority, we will make sure that we probably hold the government because you cannot suffocate organs and agents of state on the back of prudence and economic management. You are basically halting, you are basically bringing to a halt. You are grounding the wheels of governance if you don't spend. We want to ensure that, and you realize when the vice president was going around institution, every single institution, there was one common denominator of complaint. And when we were telling the government was not spending, they were denying. But when the vice president visited them, you know the common denominator, they said they were not getting their releases. Every single institution that the vice president
Finance Minister says that they are indeed spending.
And I'm saying that when the vice president visited his own ministers at their ministries, they said they were not getting their releases. So it's one thing to lie to the good people of Ghana, and then when the reality is now, the litmus test is before you, the chemical test is when your people are facing the hazards of your decisions. Right? So we will make sure that we hold government to account and to make sure that they release money to every single thing they have promised under the 2026 budget. Of course, government is bringing several bills. We will cooperate to the extent that such bills are for the furtherance of the public good. Such bills are for the betterment of the good people of Ghana. Such goods are for the development of Ghana. We will give the government our fullest cooperation. But anything short of that, we will resist it, even though we may not win, but posterity will judge and be candid and be kind to the people of the MPP and the minority in the future if our actions or if our decisions are rejected by the majority now.
Thank you so much for your time here.
Thank you very much.
Pulse, Kabiru Mahama has been my guest here on The Pulse. You're still watching The Pulse. We'll be back to talk about the MPP primaries after this quick time. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. To other stories now, government says investigations into corruption cases are ongoing, with 280 cases currently under review and at least 20 expected to have their dockets completed soon. Speaking to Emefa Adeti earlier, Minister for Communications Felix Kwakye stressed that the Office of the Attorney General cannot act extrajudicially or conduct so-called speedy trials, noting that the Attorney General does not convict but only present cases for the courts to determine.
280 cases, different cases of corruption that have been looked into. And you recall that the President set up the Oral Preparatory Committee, and their task was just to put together information relating to these alleged cases. They presented a report with the 280 cases, and I can tell you that the Attorney General has commissioned investigations into each of them. You see, the report itself could not have formed the basis for any legal action against anybody because they were just reports. It's like you coming to tell me that your cameraman has done the ABCD. I cannot simply say that because you have said it, then I hold him and throw him into jail. I mean, it will not make sense.
How then did you put a value on it, on how much we could recover?
No, so for instance,
that's an estimate?
It's an estimate. So that if this phone costs 200 cedis and it was stolen, that is the amount involved. If you were held accountable for stealing it, it means that you had engaged in corruption to the tune of 200 Ghana. So you put all the figures involved together. There are some that you can recover. Others may yet be difficult because of the nature of the offense. But the point I'm making is that all the 280 cases are receiving attention. I can tell you that more than 100 people have been hauled in for questioning. Some have been arrested. Some were detained for some time. Some have been granted bail, and others too are in court. There are over 20 cases whose dockets are almost done and will be going to court. The Attorney General has already proceeded to court on a number of those cases. So everything is being done to fully implement Operation Cover All It. I understand that because of the pervasive nature of the corruption in the recent past, people want to see results and they want it done in a rapid fashion. Government appreciates that fully, except that oral itself has to be done in accordance with Ghanaian law. We cannot act extrajudicially. So anybody accused of wrongdoing must be taken through a process, and the process will end up in a court.
Well, he also criticized the Agenda 111 hospital project introduced under the erstwhile Akufo-Addo administration, describing it as rushed and driven more by political expediency than careful planning.
They initiated a program that was going to cost $2 billion, and yet did not have $2 billion to finance it. So it was always going to be an albatross around the neck of government.
Is this to suggest that every project that is started by a certain government will usually have funds available
so
to finish
there are different types of projects. For example, if we're doing a 3-unit classroom block, that one you can use the trickles that often comes by way of GOG funding to complete it. But when you design a $2 billion project, you need to have dedicated funding. Otherwise, it's going nowhere. So it depends on the kind of project you are doing. That is why when we were doing those mega projects, we had money. Look at the Terminal 3. Money had been secured for it. The KJJ market, we had over $250 million from Deutsche Bank or so to complete it. Look at the Temampakadam project. We had close to $400 million from the Indian Exim Bank to undertake it. UGMC at $270 million. Radio Hospital at $250 million to complete. So all these projects were funded. So when you inherit it, all you need to do is to draw down to carry out any activity that is left to operationalize it. But in the case of Agenda 111, they didn't leave anything. So it was more like slogans that they were singing. They tried to scratch around for money here, money there through within government's own budget in order to be able to do the project. But it was obvious that the money was not forthcoming. That is how come they were not able to operationalize. Because how can you plan to build 111 hospitals and not open even one? Government has decided that it is not going to be able to scramble $2 billion or whatever. I think at the last instance, we need about $1.5 billion to complete it. And therefore, it is obvious that finding that kind of money at this time will be difficult. So we have to do it in phases. Okay. So this year, money has been set aside in the budget to complete 10 of them. And then as we go forward, more and more will be brought on stream. That is a more sustainable way of addressing it rather than spreading ourselves thin and looking for money where it does not exist.
Well, on economic initiative, the government says entities seeking to participate will be formally registered as part of efforts to ensure coordination and accountability. According to the Minister for Government Communications, the program is also expected to drive import substitution by boosting local production and strengthening domestic value chains.
Basically, it's an economy that never sleeps, that works around the clock, and that is able to create additional space for businesses both in the private and public sector to flourish, and in so doing create more job opportunities for our youth. That essentially is what the 24-hour economy. Mind you, it is also complemented by an accelerated export development program, because which first aims at achieving import substitution, so that those things that we import that we can manufacture here, in which we have comparative advantage, we do so, and then we switch to an export orientation where we are now able to export products and be able to earn foreign exchange.
Away from that, let's do some politics now. The NPP primaries are entering a critical period with less than a week to go before delegates cast their votes. Tensions are running high, and the party's internal dynamics is looking particularly volatile, with the outcome of polls far from certain. Aspirants are pulling out all stops, each claiming to be the unifying force the party desperately needs. Dr. Yaw Osei-Duchum's camp is driving the narrative that he is the calm in the storm, the leader who has steered clear of internal squabbles and divisive rhetoric. The former flag bearer, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's supporters, are unequivocal. They say that he's the man to bring the party together. The air is thick with allegations of dirty tricks and divisive tactics. But amidst the mudslinging, Brian Achampong is confident he's the man of the moment and the one the party really needs. The following report has more.
In just 5 days, delegates of the New Patriotic Party will head to the polls to choose who leads the party into the 2028 general elections. After a painful defeat in 2024, the party's first hurdle is internal, selecting a new flag bearer before any serious attempt at returning to power. 5 candidates are in the race. They include former Assin Central MP Kennedy Ejapon, former Vice President and former presidential candidate Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, former Education Minister Dr. Yaw Osei-Duchum, former General Secretary of the party Kwabena Ejapon, and former Agric Minister and MP for Abetifi Brian Achampong. All 5 aspirants are crisscrossing the country, making last-minute appeals to delegates. In the Ashanti region over the weekend, Dr. Brian Achampong said he was concerned about growing tension in the race. He called on party members to put unity first. He alleged that Dr. Bawumia declined to exchange pleasantries with Kennedy Ejapon on arrival at the signing of the Peace Pact. According to Brian Achampong, but for his intervention, the situation could have escalated. A development, he says, highlights the need for restraint among all camps.
I am the only one that can unite this party for victory in 2028.
However, Kennedy Ejapon has also accused Brian Achampong of failing to exercise due diligence in the signing of the Peace Pact.
Dr. Achampong, sign, baby, I never said me sign.
They don't read the document. Brian Achampong signed against my name because he failed to carefully read the document. I'm not a PhD holder.
Kennedy's campaign team says measures to prevent foreign interference are in place and is urging authorities to enforce the law. Meanwhile, Dr. Yaw Osei-Duchum says he will upgrade public basic schools to international status within 2 years if elected. He made the commitment while engaging delegates in Tamale ahead of the primaries. Security is expected to be tight on voting day. The Inspector General of Police warned that violence will not be tolerated.
Please, we are cautioning that the police are more macho than the macho men you deploy. And that when it comes to the stage, that these macho men will not take advice from the caution that is given them. And they come to the police station and then we arrest them.
The NPP flag bearer election is scheduled to take place on Friday, with the outcome expected to shape the party's future direction.
So the infighting and allegations are rising, and concerns are also coming up about what this will mean for the party. Well, join us now to have a conversation on this is Kwesi Kwarteng, his spokesperson for Kennedy Japan. I also have with me a rep from Dr. Baumia's campaign team, Kofi Tonto. We appreciate your time. Let's delve right into it and just look at fallouts from the Peace Pact sign. Now, start with Kwesi Kwarteng. You've been away for a while. Welcome back. Happy New Year. It's in order. What actually happened based on the briefing you've received, and what's the internal wrangling all about? You have some mute for us to hear you clearly. Kwesi Kwarteng, you have some mute for me to hear you clearly.
I don't think he's hearing you.
Okay. Who's Kofi Tonto is speaking right now, I presume?
Yes.
Great. Since we have you, let's start with you. Let's look at the fallout of the signing of the Peace Pact. Allegation as to what happened, who was on whose side, and the divisiveness that has, come up in the media space afterwards. What's your stance and thoughts about some of the key concerns that have come up after the signing of the Peace Pact?
Well, first of all, I think we need to identify what the facts are in as far as what transpired at the Peace Pact. It remains a fact that all the aspirants, including their reps, received copies of the Peace Pact before the event itself. From what I've heard, about 2 or 3 days before the event. So on the day of the event, just before Honorable Kennedy Japan signed the document, he raised a question. Let me also put it on record that one, there was no omission, there were no errors, and there were no deletions. Just before he signed the document, he raised a concern that you are asking me to sign a document. What if something happens on election day and because of that, I don't want to sign? What if? I don't want to agree to the results. That was his query. So the whole outing or outdoor of misinformation that one, there was a deletion is untrue. There was an omission is untrue. There was an error is untrue. Then the chairman of the committee explained to him that, look, when it comes to whether or not there will be concerns, there are processes within the electoral system that allows you to address your concerns. So, for example, if on the voting day, you deem something inappropriate, for example, you think somebody was supposed to vote and they couldn't vote, or there was supposed to be an action and that action didn't occur, the Electoral Commission has processes of addressing those concerns on site. So if, just like they do for national elections, so if you have concerns, you have 2 agents for every polling station. Your agents have to raise those concerns, and then we will address those concerns. If those concerns necessitate, that is, if the events that occur are adverse enough to affect the credibility of the elections for that particular polling station, we may annul the results, just as we do for national elections. So that has been taken care of. And when that discussion came up, your rep, Jojo Rocky, was there. So this discussion has been taken care of. Then Honorable proceeded to go ahead and sign the document. So that is what transpired. So it was not true that there was an omission, there was a deletion, or there was an error. In any case, if your argument one is that you never received the document, if you never received the document, then which original document are you using as your basis to establish that there was an omission or an error or a deletion? I hope you get the point that I'm making, because there has to be a source document and then another document, and there has to be discrepancy between the source document and the newer document to establish the omission, deletion, or errors. So if you didn't receive any document, on what basis were you able to establish that there was an error, there was an omission, or there was a deletion? So it was absolutely not true, a complete figment of their own imagination. In any case, my position is no different from the position other candidates have espoused. For example, just today, Kwabena Japan, in an interview, took the same position that I've taken, that there was no omission, no deletion, or nothing like that whatsoever, and that indeed they all received copies of the documents before the peace pact.
And there appeared to be some internal tension, especially even we saw with the sitting arrangement and how each candidate had formed their own camp within the signing of the peace pact table when we saw on air. The big concern now is that post the elections, can we even guarantee that whoever wins will work with other candidates for the party?
Well, two things, my sister. You can base that question on two things. One, who has done it before? You know, record of what has transpired in the past. The record shows that His Excellency, the former Vice President, has won the election before, and when he won the election, he was able to bring on board other contestants and then work with them. He was able to bring on board other persons who didn't support him and work with them. In fact, some of them were integral in the entire process. So he has done it before. Number two, his position, his disposition, let me put it that way. He has carried himself in a manner that makes it possible to unite people. I mean, his comments, his language, his posturing, his behavior, his humility, his tolerance, all of these things culminate into a person who is well positioned to unite people. Because the only way you can unite people is if you deal with them fairly to begin with. He has not insulted anybody, he's not called anybody names, he's not denigrated anybody. So it makes it easier for him to unite people once he wins the election. For the other candidates, I cannot speak for them. But at least for my candidate, he's positioned himself decently enough to show that once he wins, he'll be able to bring everybody on board.
Let me bring in Dr. Dixon Adumaku Kisi. He's a member of Dr. Brian Champon's camp. He joins the conversation now. We appreciate your time here on The Pulse. A lot has transpired post the signing of the peace pact. I'd like to start with allegations that your candidate signed on the name of Kennedy Japan. Is that what actually transpired? Did he not read the document?
Well, thanks for your time. That is not the case, and I think others can corroborate this, that there was nothing like signage against a name that is not Dr. Brian Champon's name. So that isn't the case. I think we've gone through this over and over. And I think it's very clear to me that it would be quite unfortunate to even make the argument that nobody reads, especially when others have been very clear that this was a ceremonial signage, in the sense that the document had been delivered to each candidate prior to the sitting.
So your camp received a copy of the document? post the
Of course,
signing?
nobody could have read the entirety of that within an hour and then agreed to signing, over there. This is something that we all know was a ceremonial event. That was not the place for reading. Of course, if it's appropriate, everybody would have then had his team peruse the document during the program. And nobody would allow for candidates to go and sit and read alone and take a decision on behalf of the entire campaign. That is certainly not what is sort of very pragmatic or wise to do. So let me put on record that each candidate has the opportunity to peruse the document prior to the signage. And
but can you give me a duration or a timeline? When exactly do you receive the document? Was it when you arrived at the location, or you had a document before?
There's certainly not the printed out, very nicely printed out document, but the content has been known to, all the parties. And may I say that discussions and stakeholder engagement led to the creation of this document. So it will be very unfortunate for anybody to think that we just woke up one day and then there's a peace pact and it has to be signed. This was very ceremonial.
But then I wanted to clarify when exactly you received the soft copy, at least, of this peace pact, and when you received the hard copy.
The content, whether soft or hard, like I was saying, was prior to the signage.
Okay.
And, that is, let's not, the content is what matters. And as I said, there's been discussions in between candidate and the stakeholders about this prior to that day. And what happened at the Lisa Hotel was a ceremonial event.
Well, this is coming up because of the allegation that the document had discrepancies and errors in it. And so we just wanted to clarify when each camp received a copy of the document, and if indeed you spotted any error in the document.
Let me reiterate this. The document had no editing after or before, let me say, the signage within those 3 hours. There was no editing done, no add-ons, no deductions or reductions. So I hope I can be as clear to you as possible. Either you choose to take the allegations or you choose to take us in what happened, that there were no reductions or additions or editing of that document.
Clearly, during the signing of the peace pact, we could sense a tension in the air. And so the question is, post the election on the 31st, who would be the unifier of the other aspirants should he win the upcoming polls? Your candidate, Dr. Brian Ichambo, has been, touting that he's the man for the job and he's a unifier. How do you plan to do that if indeed he wins?
Well, looking at his demeanor during the whole program, though some appeared upset to the extent that their own people have attested that some or one or two candidates were not happy. His demeanor was quite, to borrow from fashion, demure, in the sense that he sought to even, smile as much as possible, to engage them with a few jokes, hoping that tempers would come down. But in all of this, one thing is very clear, and I keep saying this, and I believe Tonto would agree, that we cannot win 2028 with one lane. We need a dual courage, in the sense that if Ken should win, he can't go it alone. Neither can Baumia go it alone. It's impossible doing the math. So a candidate who's not, with such diehard following, who are not at the neck and, trying to either win or no other way, should be the one. The middle ground should be the one. And I think that the temperament of Dr. Brian Ichambo, shows that when he comes, at least he's more amenable to bringing the two, titans together. And I think that is so clear. It's a no-brainer, really. If you listen to the grassroots, it's a no-brainer. What I worry about, largely, like many of us, is that beyond 31st, this Saturday, who stands tall and who will be more agreeable to bringing the two sides together. And I think everybody knows that it'll be that road will be much easier with Dr. Brian Champo. However, should any of the others win, I think one side will be quite difficult to work for the other side.
And why is that?
Well, we all know that the followings have been so, bitter in terms of their bickering, shall I use that word? And they've been at it to an extent that is becoming injurious and not as friendly as politicking should be. So we're hopeful. We are really hopeful that the delegates will consider a vote for togetherness to be that of Dr. Brian Champo, so that we can come together and then go at it with the NDC. But if we go on a one lane would not lead us to victory in 2028.
I know that the Tamale branch, the Northern Region branch for Brian Champon's team, raised concerns about a grand scheme to strong-arm executives into voting for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. I know you submitted a petition. Is there any update on that?
As far as I'm concerned, I think that we'll continue to dialogue and we are encouraging people to vote freely and to vote as their mind dictates and not by virtue of coercion. And we abhor coercion to the core. And we hope that the party, per its arrangement and the leadership, would ensure fairness. And if they should do otherwise, then the pact becomes a troublesome thing, because the pact requires that the party also act right. The pact is not just between the aspirants. The pact is between the party and its leadership and the aspirants. So in local terms, both, it takes two to tango. So the party will act right, then the aspirants will agree to the result. And if we don't see that, then there'll be a bit of a withdrawal of, let me say, signatures.
Now, stay with me. Let me bring in Kwesi Kwating. He's from Kennedy Japan's camp. We appreciate your time here on The Pulse. A lot of things have happened post the signing of the Peace Pact. You raised concerns about errors in the document. Other candidates have disputed that.
Well, thank you very much. And I think from our camp, we feel that we've discussed this matter enough. And it's not a subject matter that we want to respectfully spend so much time on. Because, what is the point? That one party, after we sign a peace pact, Kofi Toto will be on the line of obviously attempt to put Ken in a different light. And Kwesi Kwating will also come in his attempt to rebut, also put Bawumia in a different light. I think right after the peace pact, after the pact has been signed, we all move forward in one accord, in unison. Hopefully after 31st, whoever come as a winner will come together and support him. From our camp, we believe that it is not in the best interest of the party to discuss this matter further on television, because at the end of the day, it does no good to the party as a whole, especially when we had just signed a pact. As to who is right, who is wrong, I'm not sure we are so much interested in it. Bottom line is that Ken was given a document. He felt that as a leader, he has to peruse it once again before he proceeds to sign. People have even argued that he had a document earlier, but I've always insisted that, assuming even without admitting that he even had a document earlier, nothing prevents him or bars him from still reading further and raising a point of clarification. I think this should end it. As to the jabs coming from all sides, whether from our side, whether from Brian's side, whether from Dr. Bawumia's side, these are very normal and natural occurrences in politics, especially looking at the moments and the times we are in. So those ones, we just have to forgive ourselves, pat our back, and move on. but to situate the conversation on national television, 3 clear days after the signing of the pact, and now discuss who did wrong, who didn't do right, the mood of Dr. Bawumia, Ken's objection. Now Brian portrays as the messiah to bring the party. Indeed, in any event, if any of them, which is Dr. Bawumia, Kennedy Japan, did not want to, I'm sure they reserve the right not even come for the event even in the first place. And to be very honest, we are doing politics. I support Ken, I speak for Ken, but I do not believe in one bit that any of the parties sitting there would want to do anything to break the party. All of them are senior party members. They will want to unite the party. They want to bring the party together. They will want the party to win the 2028 election. So I do not subscribe to this view that if it has not been me, they were going to fight. I mean, come on, that who Dr. Bawumia is going to fight with Kennedy Japan. They came to design peace, but it wasn't a taekwondo, how do you call it, taekwondo activity. So let's move on. We've signed the peace pact. It settles the whole discussion. But to be on TV and throw one jab and try to blame, I don't think our team is so much interested in it.
But you stoked the flames. Your camp stoked the flames. You raised the concerns about even Brian Achampong signing on the part allocated for Kennedy Japan. So these are your concerns you raised, and we were just seeking clarity. Are you saying as your camp, all the concerns you raised were actually non-existent?
Oh, come on. I am saying that we've reached a level where those matters that were raised, whether valid or invalid, are no longer relevant, especially some few days to election. At the end of the day, in our camp, I'm not sure it's going to add any votes to Kennedy Japan. Neither is also going to add any votes to Brian Achampong or Dr. Bawumia. Most important thing is that the pact has been signed. And we have, if we are not very careful, we'll just be diverting the discussion from the essence and relevance of the pact to some of these peripheral matters, which I believe, in all honesty, they are not so much of relevance, that we should focus on the symbolic nature of the pact, that at the end of the day, it unites all of us, it brings all of us together, and most importantly, it demonstrates that whichever way, whatever that it may be, at the end of the day, as a party, we'll still be able to come together and win power in 2020. As to, the aspersions that has been casted, we've heard from all rounds. I'm saying that the whole idea of the pact is to end that conversation, especially when it has been signed in its conclusion and there was no objection to it and all the parties signed. We should move on.
Another key concern that has come up is who exactly would be the unifier for other candidates should he win the upcoming polls. Concerns have been raised about your candidates. Is he willing to work with other candidates should he win in the upcoming polls? How does he even plan to unify the fold?
Let me be very honest with you. I do not in one bit or even in a second think that any of the candidates will not tend to unite the party after the 31st January primaries. All of them have good thought about the party, and they look at the supreme interest of the party. So I give all of them thumbs up. Even the whole idea about signing the pact itself demonstrates all of them their commitment to sign, to pushing for unity and uniting the party at the end of the day. But of course, for the purpose of our politics, I obviously will speak for my candidate. And I would say that Kennedy Japan has that track record of uniting the party and has led a lot of reconciliation initiatives, which I genuinely believe all of them may even pursue same. If you recall, the former incident between the chairman and the Honorable Esiama, it was Ken who led that negotiation and reconciliation efforts. If you also recall, in 2023, after Ken had lost, he reached out to his junior brother, Dr. Bawumia, and they all campaigned across the length and breadth of the country. So I'm sure that it doesn't matter who comes out as a winner. I have so much confidence in all the 5 aspirants that whether Kennedy Japan, whether Dr. Brian Achampong, Dr. Bawumia, anyone who emerges as a winner will all come together and support that person. I'm not sure I have to raise somebody as superior in terms of having some wild and mystic credence to unite the party. I can say that all of them have the supreme interest of the party at heart. And of course, in terms of the candidature of Kennedy Japan, he has demonstrated that and has some level of track record to that. So yes, whichever way, whether I mean, the outcomes are two. Either you win or you lose, but we are confident of winning. And at the end of the day, all of us will come together as one party.
Finally, before I let you go, how preparations so far? We know that we just have a few more days to the election date. Internally, how preparations going?
Yeah, most of the rounds are done. That is moving to the delegates to appeal to them. Most of them, a lot of us are concluding, except some few ones. Even as now, I'm speaking to you from Ayawaso North, where I'm here with Honorable Natoshi. Ken currently is also in Asante region, also doing some engagement relative to the election. Of course, the wife is also doing some in other regions. So far, if you ask me, I'll say our team is highly prepared. We are more than prepared. We are trusting in the personality and confidence of God that 31st He grants us victory, because the Bible has been clear that chariots and horses are prepared for the day of battle, but when it comes to victory, it alone comes from the Lord. So we are confident that at the end of the day, God will show us mercy and touch the hearts of the delegates. Just like the Bible says that the heart of the king has always been in the hands of the Lord. And like the river that runneth, He turneth wherever He likes. So we will continue to appeal to them. And we are very hopeful that at the end of the day, 31st Ken will emerge victorious. So we wish ourselves congratulations in advance. Kofi Tonto, join me to wish Ken congratulations.
Let me bring in Kofi Tonto as we wrap up the conversation. Kofi, how preparations going so far as we wrap up?
My sister, what Kwesi just did, is in communication. When your back is against the wall, you find a crafty way to turn around. Because I'm happy you asked Kwesi those questions. You don't believe in unity again. No. You were the one that led the charge. You were the one that led the accusations. You were the one that did interviews and wrote on your Facebook post and all manner of things. You were the one that did that. And Kwesi, it was your boss after the pact who then went to another event and said that other PhD people didn't read, etc. But let the fact remains that you have come to the realization that the misinformation you peddled were untrue. And so it is only honest that you say, okay, look, we took a position then. We've come to realize that the position we took were not entirely the case, and therefore we like to move on. But Kwesi wants to do a fantastic communication strategy by omitting their own omission that they used, omitting their behavior, and then jumping to the conclusion that, oh, let's all come together, let's all unify, let's all focus. Yeah, of course we are going to focus, because we've always focused. But when certain utterances are made, when certain accusations are made, they destroy the very image of the party that we are all trying to protect. Because a perception was created that the party didn't give your leader the right information, that the party, in fact, there was one gentleman that works for Kwesi who wrote that a section of the document was deleted, deliberately deleted, and it was Kennedy who was smart who found it, impugning criminality on the leadership of the committee. Because we can't just wish all these things away.
So you want them to officially apologize?
They have to admit that they got some things wrong, that indeed their camp worked the documents, that indeed there were no omission, that indeed there were no deletion, that indeed there were no errors. Honorable Kennedy Japan.
Can I respond?
Kwesi, I'll give you time to respond. Let him wrap up.
When I'm done, you can respond. But there were no omissions, there were no deletions, there were no errors. Kennedy raised a concern. Those concerns, he was told, have been addressed already. He proceeded to sign. Finito. It ends there. On the bit about unity and everything, as I've already told you, my candidate stands tall as far as how he has conducted himself, how he has done it before. So it really shouldn't be an issue going forward, in as far as. So once, God willing, victory is ours. Kwesi and Co, I saw his brother at the back. They can join, I'll bring them to Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, and then we can all work together. They can still support the communications team. I mean, they are young, vociferous people who, are doing well in their own right. They can join and we can all do the work and prosecute the 2028 agenda.
Thank you so much, Kofi. I'll come back to Kwesi. Let me wrap up with Dr. Dixon. Your final words as we wrap up the conversation. How is campaign going, knowing that we just have a few more days to wrap up?
Well, I think Dr. Brian Champo has done well. He stepped foot on every soil constituency in this country. And his message has been very simple, that, he stands for the youth and stands to reactivate the base to make up for the 2 million deficit that we were bestowed upon in 2024. And he's very hopeful that he comes with new ideas, and ones that would work for the country's job industry, and then in terms of helping with industrial development of this country. So we're very hopeful. If the delegates give him the nod, he's very well resourced and very ready to put us through everything needed to win 2028.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Dixon, for your time here on the Pulse. Let me wrap up with Kwesi Kwasi. Kwesi, will you apologize to Ghanaians?
Oh, come on. Kofi should give us a break. Apology for way. I have restrained myself in going into the matter further as a matter of principle. And the principle was that we
So your concerns still stand?
First of all, the principle first, that we cannot be on TV to destroy the party, especially after signing a peace pact. Then what is the sense of going in the first place to go and sign a peace pact? Well, of course, all the concerns that we raised, and it is important for me to reiterate, at no point did any member of our team stated that there were errors in the document. Our point was that there were omissions.
But I have your screenshot too.
Can I
no, please, Kofi, you have to allow Kwesi finish.
No problem.
You spoil my flow. Let me proceed. At no point did we say anywhere that there were errors in the documents. We raised a point relative to omissions based on earlier discussions that had been agreed upon between the parties and the electoral commissioner, which our candidate felt will reflect or manifest in the document. And when he didn't see it, he then raised a point for clarification, assuming even without admitting that he even had a document even prior to going there. He was even reading it in his car prior to going there. What prevents him from raising a point for clarification? I mean, leaders must exercise due diligence. The fact that you are signing a document, for the cameras or ceremonial, does not necessarily mean that you cannot also exercise due diligence. Of course, we are not trying to throw any shade, but Ken, in his right senses and in his right place, felt that he ought to have exercised due diligence. And of course, when there is any point of clarification, he raised those points. And that was exactly what he did. If you feel offended that your colleague has exercised due diligence and you didn't, that is left to you. But like I indicated, we've passed those stages. We can't be on TV and throwing tantrums on who did that, who didn't do that. The whole essence of the pact should seal everything, end everything. By 31st, we'll all come together and support Ken's candidature for 2028. Thank you. Kofi, bye-bye, and catch you.
Kwesi Kwasi is a member of Kennedy Japan's team. I've also been speaking to Kofi Tonto. He's from Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's team, as well as Dr. Dixon, who's from Brian Champion's camp. I appreciate your time, gentlemen. Away from politics, across the northern part of Ghana, the shea nut tree has long been a symbol of survival for women, providing income, food, and dignity. But today, that lifeline is drying up. Rising temperatures, erratic rains, and changing weather patterns are leaving the shea trees barren, forcing women to abandon their villages. Now, many are migrating to the south as porters. Many call them kai. In the bustling market cities, you may have spotted them. They carry heavy loads for little pay, facing abuse and hardship, all because the land they once depended on can no longer sustain them. This is a story of how bad weather conditions are pushing women from shea fields into harsh reality of the streets. There's more in the following report.
The rains no longer fall as they used to. The land is drying, and the shea trees, the backbone of women's income in northern Ghana, are dying. Now, the same women who once lived off these trees are struggling for survival in Ghana's cities. Mariam Hadi is a former shea nut collector.
Initially, picking shea nut was a profitable venture for me, generating between 500 and 1,000 cedis monthly. However, the business I invested in didn't thrive due to the decline of the shea nut industry. As a result, I had to relocate to Kumasi and take up work as a porter to make ends meet.
Mariam is one of thousands once shea nut collectors, now head porters, working long hours for very little.
What I'm doing here is tough. Back home, being a shea nut collector was good.
3 young women, 3 different communities, but the same reason for leaving home. The shea trees no longer fruit. Mariam Isako is another former shea collector. Mariam has left her husband and children back home.
Carrying heavy loads can cause neck and body pain, although some days you might be fortunate and get a lighter load.
My name is
Suleimana Mariam. The work here is difficult, but shea nut collection was a lucrative business. The problem is they are scarce now.
Scientists say the problem is deeper than poverty. The weather is changing and the trees cannot survive. Dr. Regina Tang Guru is the head of Forest and Climate Change Division at the CSIR Forestry Research Institute of Ghana.
Increased temperature and reduced rainfall, which is drought, are definitely going to have a stress on the plant, and that affects various physiological properties of the tree. In terms of its growth, in terms of its fruiting patterns, we've already talked about the yields. So these are some of the stresses that we can expect. And of course, if we also talk about global warming and climate change, these also lead to increased buildup of dry biomass. And when you have increased buildup of dry biomass, you also end up having more, what we expect as more risk of wildfires. And so the wildfires also tend to affect the trees and bring an added layer of stress for tree growth and tree productivity.
In Tamale, groups like the Savannah Women Integrated Development Agency are helping women learn new skills. Hajia Alima Sajito is the executive director.
We have been in communities where you can hardly count 10, 15 young girls. They've gone. So it's a real thing, it's happening.
The Global Share Alliance, through the Ghana Share Landscape Emission Reductions Project, combines protection of existing trees with large-scale replanting.
We are raising, like every year, we seed, that is, we put into polypots about 1.5 million, right? And we get about 50% of that germinating, and another 75% of the 50 surviving before we graft some and take some to the we transplant the rest. Share has not become commercially viable. Like farmers will go out and buy cashew seedlings themselves and transplant them.
Clement Matumasin is the executive director of Dream Village. Clement's team promotes regenerative agriculture, restoring soil, biodiversity, and livelihoods.
What needs to be done specifically will be policy changes, that we make general policies. We know that some of these policies are already in existence, but enforcing them is a problem. So can we go back to the drawing board, work with the local community?
As the shea trees die, more women and girls will be forced to leave home. But with the right support, the trees can return, and so can the livelihoods of northern Ghana's women.
This story is brought to you by JoyNews in partnership with CDKN Ghana, University of Ghana Center for Climate Change and Sustainability Studies, with funding from Claire R41 Opportunities Fund.
And that's how we wrap up the pulse. I appreciate your time and company. For more news, please log on to myjoyonline.com. My name is Faustina Safo. Good afternoon. Bye.